speaking of Wolverine being able to be so versatile, I'm curious as to how the Wolverine storyline will kind of come into play in Days of Future Past in the X-Men franchise.
Why don't you answer that, Lauren, seeing as you're a producer of both? Do you want to answer that? So I don't get in trouble for giving anything away?
You know, it's hard to say. All the characters are intertwined. And I'm just hesitating because, I don't want to spoil the movie for you when it comes out next year. So all I can say is that Wolverine plays a very integral part in the movie. And I know that's vague, but you'll have to go see it.
And also, if you stay to the end of the Wolverine, you see a great teaser for Days of Future Past. But it's fair to say, the Wolverine, as he leaves, the character you see at the end of the Wolverine is very much the character who enters Days of Future Past, which, by the way, is a very different character to the beginning of the Wolverine. So it's quite a journey.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Lauren, this is a question for you. In doing this film, which is based on one of the seminal 80s superhero comics, I was just wondering if that gave you a sort of a renewed appreciation for, that lean storytelling that was so strong, in Claremont and Burns' graphic novel, or Claremont and Miller's graphic novel, rather, and if we'll see in X-Men Days of Future Past that continue in the sense of, adherence to that really meaty storytelling that they had.
Yeah, I mean, look, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them, for Chris Claremont and Frank Miller and Len Wein and all those guys. So they did. They told a lean, mean story in the Wolverine saga, but the Wolverine saga was, was too large in a sense to sort of condense. So we just picked a part of it. What's interesting is once you get into the Days of Future Past with so many versions of reality in the comic of the past and the future, and intercutting between those stories, and the way they told the story, they ratcheted up the tension in both the present and the future, or at that time it was the present and the future. Were it not for them actually building original characters with flaws and conflict and grounding them in reality, we would not have made any of these X-Men movies. But because these characters were so real to all of the comic fans, they were easy to bring to life and to attract great actors and directors.
Thank you.
I just had a question regarding the international nature of the film and the influx of international actors. And with the influx of international actors and money in film in general these days, how do you see that affecting the domestic film industry?
Over to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it is now an international business, and I'll toss some of this to Hutch too, but it is an international business. It used to be years ago when I started making movies, it was you worried about your domestic gross, and maybe, 10 years in, so I started actually I won't tell you when I started, but by the 90s, you were started to be concerned about, maybe you should have a French character or an Italian character or a Chinese character. Now it's very international. It's you can do not so well domestically and huge internationally and have a great big hit. Hutch has seen a lot of this transpire too, so I'm curious to see what he'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lauren's right that today's movie market is a world market, right? And it's no longer a domestic-centric thinking either at any of the studios or, frankly, on behalf of filmmakers. You have to look at it in terms of a global audience. This comic and this particular story, and one that was championed so heavily by Lauren, calls up and asks us to go to Japan. And I think, interestingly, in times past, that might have felt challenging. I think in today's market, it felt like an opportunity to take the audience to a world, to take the characters to a world that we've never seen, that we really haven't seen depicted this way. And it was almost something we talked about in making the movie that felt analogous to taking them to an alien planet or taking them to a parallel universe, somewhere where we could really make them a fish out of water. And so I actually think the uniqueness and the exotic nature of Japan is going to serve, hopefully, very well to the domestic market as something new, but also to the global market.
The only thing I'd add to all that is that I think that I mean, I don't really think about that so much when I enter a project, is like how I can make it work in 28 marketplaces. But I think that what Hutch and Lauren are touching upon is the idea also that this was a story that took place in Japan. And I think that one of the things that, even though the climate is changing and people are more conscious of world cinema and international markets, is I have to give credit to Fox for really coming through on something that they laid the table for when I came on the project, which is that they were really willing to take a risk with this. I don't think it's as simple, you can make a movie where you pull in different cast members, one from Europe and one from Asia and you create this kind of Benetton commercial that sells around the world. But you can also, this is a movie with, other than Hugh Jackman, it's pretty much 100% Japanese cast. So I think that took a lot of guts on the part of Fox. And I think they also let me play a third or more of the movie in Japanese, which I thought also was a very sophisticated way to go. And I think it's what plays better for audiences these days, because I think we've gotten past the age of characters from another country being alone in a bedroom speaking English for some reason. But I think it's still, you have to acknowledge in this marketplace with the amount of money getting invested in a movie, that the studio really made a commitment with this film to make something different, to make something a little left of center and a little out of the box. And I hope people appreciate that those risks were taken. They were actually backed and not fought by the studio.
On that note, we need to end. We need to get you to Hall H, but we thank you very much.